Hello, I'm Lebu Diseko. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. Frantic searches for school children after a building collapses in Lagos. 10 are confirmed dead.
Some people have been rescued and taken to the hospital. Mostly, especially the students. There's a school there, and they are doing school days. It's a private school, so we rescue some.
As investigators search through the debris of Sunday's plane crash, Ethiopian Airlines CEO says all Boeing 737 MAX 8 jets should be grounded until they're proven safe. What will Brexit mean for the African continent? We speak to the UK's Minister for Africa. Also in the programme, Spice Up Your Life. We find out how Zanzibar's spice history has made the island a tourist hotspot.
And this is a young one. We just pick it, the whole thing here. And then we drain the sun, getting black or brown.
And in sport, a CAF delegation goes to Kenya to pay respects. Hello and thank you for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. At least 10 children have died and many more are still thought to be trapped under a building with a school in it which collapsed in Lagos in Nigeria. Now the school was on the top floor of an apartment block and it's thought that more than 100 pupils were there. Pictures from the scene show rescuers desperately searching through the piles of broken concrete and twisted metal as well. Well, our reporter Aliyu Tanku is at the scene for us now. Aliyu, just desperate scenes that we saw there, parents and rescue workers looking for children. How much more do we know about what happened?
Yes, really desperate here in Lagos, and it's getting dark at the moment. A rescue operation is very slow. So far, we have confirmed that 10 people have died and 40 others have been rescued. But the problem here is this area is overcrowded. So access to this area is a bit of a nightmare to the rescue officials. I have been speaking to one of the eyewitnesses here, and this is what he said.
At least some people have been rescued and taken to the hospital. Mostly, especially the students. There's a school there, and they are doing school days. It's a private school, so we rescue some. There's some still inside that we are trying to rescue out.
What about hospitals? What's the situation there, Aliyu?
At the moment, a lot of injured pupils and residents of this building have been taken to the hospital. What we know now is that this building is a 4-story building sandwiched in between other old buildings, and it was earmarked for demolition in 2017, but authorities did not carry out the exercise. Buildings here have cracked. Not only this building that have just collapsed, other buildings here are showing signs of weakness and they are about to collapse, according to so many experts.
And Aliyu, what are people there saying? Is there anger, or are the authorities saying anything more about how this happened?
Well, at the moment, mixed feelings here from people, because some people are saying that residents are aware that their buildings are not good enough, but they are refusing to evacuate them so that government will demolish these buildings. And others are saying government should have enforced laws to make sure that buildings that are not habitable are not allowed for people to stay inside.
And Aliyu, is there any idea how long they're going to be able to search for, or what the sort of plans are for the continuing rescue effort?
Well, it's getting dark here in Lagos, and it's not clear how this effort will continue in terms of rescuing those that are under the rubble of this collapsed building. But what is clear is that access to this area is very difficult. I had to walk for like a kilometer and a half before I could reach here. And ambulances and police rescue vehicles have to park some meters away from this building because of lack of access roads. And these are slums in Lagos that are always having these kind of problems. Whenever there are issues that have to do with rescue operations, it's very difficult to carry out because vehicles are not able to access the areas.
Aliyu, an absolutely heartbreaking situation there. Thank you for bringing us up to date. Now, Canada has become the latest nation to ground the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, citing potential safety concerns. That's after the Ethiopian Airlines crash on Sunday, which claimed 157 lives. Now, also on Wednesday, Ethiopia's CEO called for all jets to be grounded until it can be confirmed that they are indeed safe to fly. My colleague Emmanuel Igunza spoke to Atuolda Gebrimalion.
The airplane was completely under the ground. So we had to dig and bring up the wreckage. It is very, very unfortunate that we are not able to get bodies. You know, investigation is going to start with collecting information, data, and all necessary inputs for the investigation. So we are at that stage right now. Speculation is not helpful in aircraft accident investigation, but as I said before, there are some similarities that we are able to trace or to connect the dots between Lion Air accident and our accident. It's the same airplane model, brand new airplanes, both during takeoff, and the duration of the flight was very short, 6 minutes in our case and 8 minutes in their case. In our case, pilot reported flight control problems, and he asked the air traffic controllers for clearance to return to base, and the clearance was given, but we can imagine that he was not able to return.
Do you think all countries should ground the planes until the investigations say the planes are safe to be up in the air?
I recommend that is the right thing to do, because safety, as we all know, and as it should be the first, and extreme precaution should be taken. A brand new airplane is having 2 major fatal accidents in a span of 5 months in a different parts of our world. There are more questions now. There are more questions without answers. And those questions are going to be answered by the investigation. But on the side of precaution of safety, it is recommended to ground the airplane, and that's what we did.
All right, let's have a quick look at other stories making headlines now. And the Nigeria-based online retailer Jumia is to float on the New York Stock Exchange. It filed papers to pave the way for the move on Wednesday. The company operates in 14 African countries. Its largest shareholder, MTN, which is Africa's biggest telecom company, could earn as much as $600 million from the move. Pollution and environmental damage account for 1/4 of all premature deaths and diseases around the world. That is according to the United Nations. Their report adds that air pollution alone is causing up to 7 million early deaths every year. And President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, has been given 2 more prison sentences relating to charges of conspiracy. They mean he now faces almost 6.5 years in jail, including a 4-year sentence that he received last week in a separate case. Now, rape and fraud scandals involving false prophets have prompted calls for regulation of churches in South Africa. There have been a number of high-profile cases in recent months, and President Cyril Ramaphosa has even got involved, urging South Africans to come together to curb false prophets. The BBC's Mulelo Mtsebeli reports.
Here in South Africa, there's been several high-profile court cases featuring these grace pastors. There's been charges of rape, fraud, and money laundering. As a church-going South African myself, I want to know why is this happening and what is being done about it.
Lubanzi, not her real name, was raped by her pastor, a man she trusted.
One day he started asking me about my sex life and my HIV status. Then he made me a drink. He said it would help my heartburn, but it tasted sour and made me sleepy. I woke up naked in his bed. I started crying and asked him what had happened. He told me to pull myself together. A while later, I realized I was pregnant. When I went to tell him, he raped me again. He said if I told anyone, they would never believe me because he's an anointed man of God.
Freedom of religion is ingrained in South Africa's constitution, making it difficult to legislate against controversial churches. But there is one organization, the CRL Rights Commission, trying to hold them to a higher standard.
In this country, doctors have the Health Professionals Council, lawyers have Law Society, every profession in this country. We are regulated by your peers. We are saying this thing called Christianity needs to be regulated as well.
But not everybody feels regulation is the best way forward.
We praise and lift you up, O God, King.
Pastor Shimikotu is concerned that regulation would violate constitutional rights and favor the bigger, better-known churches.
The CRL Commission's recommendation is naive in the list. Because what you are saying, you see the situation where a secular government is trying to determine which preacher is true and who is false. What are the tools they have to tell one false preacher from a good preacher?
False prophets and crooked pastors are not the norm here in South Africa, but they are a big problem. It seems that we South Africans are looking for a miracle, an easy fix to our lives. Listening to all the stories I've heard while making this film has been depressing, but it's also been promising that good people do care, and hopefully we can get right back on track.
Mbulela Mtsilibe reporting there. This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Lebu Diseko. Still to come in the programme, Mimi will be here with all the sports with more Champions League action today. This time, it's the turn of Liverpool. I'm Lebu Diseko. The top stories this hour. Rescue workers in Nigeria are trying to free school children from the rubble of a 4-storey building that's collapsed. At least 10 children are thought to have died. The CEO of Ethiopian Airlines has told the BBC that all countries should ground Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircrafts, the same model which crashed on Sunday, until it's confirmed that they are safe to fly. What will Brexit mean for trade with Africa? Earlier, the British government announced that if the country leaves the EU without a deal, imports into the UK will be tariff-free. But with just 2.5 weeks to go until departure day and still no clear way forward, can Africa take the UK seriously? It's a question I asked the UK Minister of State for International Development, Harriet Baldwin.
When we look back on this period, we will see that we are making some fairly minor administrative changes to the trading relationships with our nearest and closest friends, and that there will be no serious impact in terms of the relationship that we have with our very, very many friends in Africa. So this is not something that is of, I think, historic relevance to the very important and increasing presence that the UK is planning to have across Africa.
I'm sorry, how can you say that when less than 3 weeks before leaving, 2.5 weeks before we're supposed to leave the EU, we don't know how, we don't know if, we just don't know what is happening. How are countries on the continent or anywhere else supposed to look to the UK with confidence and trust what you've said?
I think what we're demonstrating is that where you have these big political challenges, that the UK will deal with these things through a process democratically, through votes in Parliament, through strong debate on the media and elsewhere. But at the same time, we will find a way through this so that we can continue to have that very, very close relationship with our European neighbours.
Well, one country that will be watching what happens with Brexit very closely is Kenya. The UK is its second most important export destination, and the country's High Commissioner to Britain is Manoa Esipisu, and he joins me now. Thank you so much for your time. Lots of uncertainty. How are businesses in Kenya? What are you hearing from people about how they feel about all of this?
Well, first, we have a very strong relationship with Britain, traditionally. More than 200 British companies, 2.5 billion pounds in investment. We have been very open about our thoughts to them. They have been very open to us. The Prime Minister visited Kenya last year. She assured us that our products would still be able to reach this market duty-free. And we do expect that would be the position. Obviously, our tea farmers, coffee farmers, fresh fruits, and flowers. Those would be people watching this very keenly, because 56% of black teas come here and 27% of our fresh produce come here.
Trade has actually been falling with the UK, hasn't it? Why is that? And are you hoping to turn that around?
I think some of that is on our side, greater competition from other countries. In Africa, for instance, the Gambia with dwarf beans, for instance, South Africa with baby corn. Those are things that they are competing evenly with Kenya. What we have to do is greater beneficiation, so value addition, better production. Those things would help deal with protecting our market here.
What kind of things will you be looking for from the UK long term? I mean, I'm thinking about things like, for example, in terms of dealing with the EU, goods that are processed, that have value added, have higher tariff structures. Are you looking to try and change that when it comes to the UK?
Not necessarily. What we need to do is, first of all, get a non-disruptive Brexit, which pretty much means that UK investors can decide to put their money in Kenya in key pillars of agriculture, in health, in manufacturing, the things that the president wants to make great progress on during his term in office. If that does happen, then with non-disruptive Brexit, there is predictability. People can move forward knowing that this is how the United Kingdom wants to deal with Africa, wants to relate in terms of trade, and wants to relate in terms of bilateral relations. Those are the things that are key to us.
High Commissioner, it's been fantastic to have you with us. Could talk for ages, but we're right out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are watching Focus on Africa. Time now for Mimi.
Thank you very much, Lebu. Now, the Confederation of African Football has sent a delegation to Nairobi to offer their condolences to the family of a senior Kenyan football official who was among those killed in Sunday's Ethiopian Airlines plane crash. Hussein Swale had been returning to Kenya after serving as a match commissioner in Friday's African Champions League game between Ismaili and TP Mazembe in Egypt. Moving on, there are two more Champions League round of 16 second leg ties today. Barcelona facing the visitors Lyon, and the other match sees Bayern Munich, who hosts Liverpool with their two African stars. It was a goalless draw in their first leg. Liverpool are in good form, just a point away from the top of the English Premier League, and the German champions are at the top of the Bundesliga. Liverpool and Egypt's Mohamed Salah is not letting any distractions get in the way ahead of his match.
The problem with all this transfer talk is it came up in the middle of the season and in the most important period for me and for all the team. It's too early to talk about the transfer market. We should talk in June and July. All I am concentrating on at the moment is my team and the race for the EPL title and for the Champions League. Then we will see what will happen. I will be honest with you. The most prestigious competition for me is the UEFA Champions League, but the dream for the entire city and the club is the league. So I am happy to sacrifice my dream for their dream, but if we win both, that would be great. And this is what we are trying to do. But I will be happy to win the league over the Champions League.
And finally, South African pro golfer Hayden Porteous says Africa is the next frontier of World Golf Tour. The 24-year-old will be competing at the East and Central Africa's premier annual golf event, the Kenya Open Gold Championships, which gets underway on Thursday. The Kenyan Golf Championship attained the European status this year, attracting star golfers. He's been speaking to the BBC about the growth of the game on the continent.
Yeah, I think there's lots of space for Africa to grow, you know, as a golfing continent. I don't think it's quite got there yet. It's definitely growing within the continent, and I think it's quite exciting for Africa. I think getting a European tour event here in Kenya is important for golf, and hopefully we can carry on, and hopefully some other countries within South Africa or within Africa can be a part of it.
And that's all the sport. Your fellow South African.
Absolutely, always repping SA. Thank you. Now, when you think of Zanzibar, you probably think tropical paradise, rich history, and plenty of relaxation. But visitors are coming for more than just sand and clear blue seas. Spices are a key attraction for tourists, as the BBC's Debula Kamoli's been finding out.
With its white sandy beaches and crystal clear waters, Zanzibar is considered a beauty heaven, and it's earned most of its money from tourism. And visitors come here not only to enjoy the sun, but also to get a taste of its spices. From cosmetics to oils and food, every corner you turn, you get a whiff of cardamom, pepper or clove. Its history in the production and export of spices has earned itself the name the Spice Island. Its economy relied on clove export, but this changed in the 1980s as world prices declined. But while earnings from clove exports is declining, spice tourism is booming. And we're going to take a tour around Mr. Abeid's farm. Come with me. You have lots of different plants on your farm.
Yes.
What kind of plants are we going to be looking at today?
I'm going to show today cardamom, black pepper, cinnamon, turmeric,
wow,
nutmeg, and the king of spices, cloves.
You said it was the king of spice. Why is it the king of spice?
Yeah, because it's cloves, the spices also considered a medicine. Oh. And this is the young one. We just pick it, the whole thing here. And then we drain the sun, getting black or brown. But the best quality is brown, not black. And the cloves can use as a medicine. For example, if a toothache, can use clove oil, and your mouth will be numbing. And also use cloves also for oil, for medicine, for muscular pains and for massage. Also use cloves for stomachache. Can make tea, can drink it, but it's very strong.
Mr. Abeid receives nearly 20 visitors every day. And for a fee, they get a tour where they learn the origin, use and benefits of each spice.
Okay, we talked already about the king of spices. Now I'm going to show you queen of spices.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
So this is the queen of spices. Do you know what it is?
No, I'm not sure.
Let me show you.
Okay.
Just cut it. And you see?
Oh, wow, it's beautiful. Is it called the queen because it's very beautiful?
Yeah, because you can use also for women. For wedding party.
Oh, women like to use at wedding parties.
Yeah.
Ah, I've never seen nutmeg like that. It's always crushed.
Yeah, this is fresh ones.
Ah.
You have to dry in the sun.
You have to dry it and then crush it.
They're getting brown.
So do you use, what is a red pulp?
It's called maize. You put in masalas.
Oh, so you can use that as well?
Yeah.
The benefits of Zanzibar's spice trade trickle down through the economy, and although it does not export in the quantities it used to, it is still a vital business for the Spice Island.
Now, before we go, just time to update you on our top story. At least 10 children have died and many more are still thought to be trapped after a building with a school in it collapsed in Lagos in Nigeria. The school was on the top floor of an apartment block and it's thought more than 100 children were there. That's all from us for now. Do join us tomorrow on Focus on Africa.